Morning guys, it's Sophie. So the clocks went back last night and I thought it was a perfect excuse for some book wrap-ups in bed in the mid-morning. Just felt perfect. And I'm going to be bringing to you my very belated February wrap-up. I think the main reason that I haven't really talked about these books yet is I was disappointed by quite a lot of them and I didn't want to sit here and get into that space, but it's nearly time for March wrap-up now. So I'm actually going to film my February wrap-up and then I will start the beginning of the filming of my March wrap-up. So I thought that would at least put the puzzle piece in place. So non-fiction wise, I did get on with this one. This is The Naked Don't Fear the Water by Matthew Aikens. This is one of Fitzcarraldo Editions non-fictions, which I've been enjoying getting into. I like how they deal with ideas. I like the variety of text they have in their publishing house. And this is looking at a man who goes on the migration journey with an individual called Omar, who is travelling from Afghanistan, trying to travel into Europe. His friend is Canadian, but appears like he's Afghan, like he has a very Afghan look about him. They talk about that quite a lot in the book. And he sort of goes with him on this migrant journey, getting rid of his own passport, getting rid of his own documents and following that the best he can. I just thought it was a really clearly written book, and it was a helpful way to tell the story. I think I would have probably got more value out of it if he was trying to help Omar tell his story rather than telling his story as doing it fakely, but I can understand the kind of journalistic desire to be experiencing that and bringing that reality that he experienced home. But I did like this one quite a bit. Then I read The Second Body by Daisy Hilliard, and this one I thought about a lot more after I finished it than I did when I was reading it. Sort of central to the premise of this, I think it's really an extended essay is what I'd call this, is the sense that we exist in two places at once. So we exist in our current body doing our own things, like me, sitting here on my bed talking to you about books. But there's a second body that imprints on the world that we are becoming more aware of, and that isn't necessarily related to our temporal space. So right now I am going to be uploading this video using the internet and using electricity to do so, which will impact communities all around the world. I have a coffee, so the coffee beans will have come from somewhere, and that's my second body kind of walking on the rest of the world, impacting people and places that I may never have been to, may never go to in the whole of my life. Yes, I kind of, oddly, because it is a really short book, kind of felt like she could have told me it in a shorter period of time, but it has stuck with me a lot. I've thought as I'm doing activities about my second body. So it's quite an interesting one. I would say sort of climate change related. The next one I really wanted to like, and I just didn't like it that much, that's Can the Monster Speak by Paul B. Procadio. And this is essentially a speech that's been transposed, where the speaker is talking about the kind of transit experience with psychiatrists and saying to them, you're kind of creating monsters and diagnoses out of gender, and how are you part of that problem? I think I just found this a little bit impenetrable. I think I perhaps found it was more academic than I was ready for in this conversation, probably because it's who it's aimed at, but I just found it was an awful lot of effort to read, literally to kind of read it and understand it, and I ended up with Tom reading some of it out to me, and I had to sort of cook at the same time. I had to really concentrate to kind of actually hear what was being said, so I did struggle with that one a little bit, and didn't love it. And then the last non-fiction I read, which I did enjoy, is Places I've Taken My Body by Molly McCulley Brown. And this is another book looking at the sort of disabled experience. She's talking about the way that she moves through her body, thinking about and reminiscing on a lost twin that she never knew, never had. And just kind of noting about her experience of moving through life within herself and the reactions that she gets. There's lots of links to text within this, like Frankenstein, that she's kind of comparing and contrasting that kind of monstrous literary tradition with her experience. And I did enjoy this one. It's told in kind of brief essays, which made it very easy to sit down and read, and I did indeed read it very fast altogether. There was one I particularly liked where she visits, I was just trying to see if it had the name. the Virginia State Colony for Epileptics and Feeble-Minded. So she visits this, what was a hospital building, and understands this and how close it was to her, and understanding her history and where she would have been in history and the placing of disabled bodies over time. So yeah, I did enjoy this one. And then I'm going to go through some fiction that I didn't like, and this is why I've been putting off this wrap up, to be honest, just because I had quite a few I didn't like. I've actually brought up the wrong book, so it's Pure Colour by Sheila Heti. I brought up Motherhood. I desperately wanted to like this. This is one of my most anticipated reads of the year. I didn't connect with it at all. I don't want to like talk about these too much, just because I was just like, oh, I can't be bothered, thus waiting so long. I just didn't connect with it. I didn't connect with her voice, herself in any way like I have done with Motherhood, and it just properly came as a disappointment. It was told in quite a sort of fairy tale manner about the categories of people that we fall into. I found it all really twee, and I just really didn't enjoy it. So that's all I'm going to say about that one. I'm going to try and keep my negative ones more brief. The next one I didn't get on with was this one. This is Mona by Polar. Oh, the font's terrible as well. I think it's Elixirara. I don't know. I'm not sure. Sorry, the text is really italicised, and I hadn't looked up how to say this one beforehand. This looks at a woman who is in this kind of high-strung creative writing community. She is nominated for this literary prize and ends up going to this sort of I don't know, multiple day writing retreat slash prize ceremony slash orgy and bacchanalias, like pleasure driving, yeah. This mess of like writers plus sex plus alcohol, basically. I know that she wasn't meant to be likeable, but I just couldn't spend any time with her at all without getting really frustrated with it. I didn't feel like the story led anywhere. I just felt like it was completely up its own arse and writing for people that are in those particular circles, and I just really didn't like it. Just really didn't like this one at all. I'd actively disliked the act of reading it. Sorry, I'm being really harsh. This is, yeah, as I say, this is why I put it off. Very sorry, my camera was sitting in the lovely sunshine. Actually overheated. So the next one that I didn't get on with was They by Kay Dick. I was excited for this one because it was prefaced by Tessa Moshfegh Foster, but I just, again, couldn't settle into it. It's about a dystopian future where this group of other people that they call They are intent on destroying anything that looks anything like creation or art, and we follow sort of various people in the community who are intent on creating this art. I couldn't figure out the whole way through reading it whether the stories meant to interlink or not. I found They very unthreatening, and I kind of just felt like it all seemed a bit farcical because there still were people clearly creating art who didn't get found out for long periods of time. So that's They. Didn't enjoy that one. And then the last one I'm going to go through that I didn't like, or didn't love, actually this one was okay, is Send Nudes. I liked the stories as I read them. I just found the overall sense of having read it fairly forgettable. I know that a lot of people have really enjoyed this. This is looking at all the different kinds of sexuality, teenage femaleness, the kind of strange space you find yourself in growing up. I just think this one wasn't for me. I don't think this is the same as the others. I don't feel as strongly. I just didn't love it. My camera has just decided it's too hot. It's not playing today, it can't cope. But I am intent on finishing this video. It's taken me so long to film it, I'm gonna get it out. So the next one that I read and I did enjoy was I Who Have Never Known Men. This is by Jacqueline Hartman. And this was kind of everything I would like to have seen in They, but I didn't get. It's about a group of women who are caged in this strange underground lair, who the main character of which at least has never known a life outside of this room. The other women have known lives outside of the room, but have kind of forgotten them over time. And the only contact they have with men is their cages, their keepers. Without kind of spoiling it, but I think it's important, they do get out of this cage into the world beyond. And the story then is about not just like the aspects of femininity, but also the aspects of just humanness. and who we are, what's socially constructed, what's constructed of ourselves, what does it mean to be human in the absence of a society. And I just really enjoyed this one. And then the last one I read was this big one. The sticker has ruined this book. It's really annoying me. But this is To Paradise by Henny Yangahara. I'm not going to hold it up the whole time, it's a beast. So I really, first of all, I'm getting ahead of myself, it's split into 3 separate books. I really enjoyed book 1 and book 3, and I didn't enjoy book 2. I kind of read it and appreciated her writing, but I didn't kind of love it the same way I did. The books as a whole are told across sort of alternate history lines of different points in the United States' history, with sort of aspects that are being played with is the kind of what if elements. So book 1 follows a young man who has had some kind of either chronic physical illness or mental illness, but it's not completely clear at the beginning at least, that has led him to kind of become isolated from the world of society, the world in which his family walks. He comes from a very wealthy family, one of these kind of top tier families, and has kind of estranged himself from everyone apart from his grandfather, who still babies him. Now, in this particular alternative reality, New York and I think a couple of other states have kind of turned themselves into what they call the free states, in which marriage equality has been achieved, but at what kind of societal expectations and price. And then there's a part of the United States called the colonies, an element called uncharted territories, and then there's the Kingdom of Hawaii. So there's kind of different geographies of the United States. I could have read a whole book on this book 1 easily. I was so annoyed when it finished. Maybe that influenced book 2. Book 2 is all set in Hawaii, and is looking at the lineage of the royal family within Hawaii, and as that begins to crumble and become less relevant, what does that mean for the family itself, but also how are social movements playing on this kind of historic notion of royalty without actually thinking through what that would mean in terms of the family, that there's people who would be heirs, but also in terms of the social movements they're looking for, would that even achieve it? I just didn't like that that whole book as a whole, though I could appreciate what she was trying to do. I just didn't love it as much. And then the final one is a really interesting one, which is set, I should have said it's set in 1993. The one set in Hawaii, it was set in 1893 for the initial story, and then 2093 for book 3. So book 3 is set told in 2 parts, so letters to an individual and a running timeline, looking at a world where pandemics have sort of spread across the globe and how society is managing or not really managing the spread of this infectious disease. I thought book 3 also I could have read as a whole book. It felt like a very close and personal story. It felt entirely real, whereas book 2, I just think I found it quite depressing. And there was a really lovely non-romantic platonic relationship running through that one of this kind of parental figure. Overall, I really did enjoy this book. I felt like the middle book sandwiched between brought it so much further down in my head than it would have done as if book 2 was a little bit stronger. So yes, it is a bit of a chunkster, but it is definitely worth reading, and I may recommend, if you don't think you're interested in book 2, read book 1 and book 3. I think whilst she's playing with a lot of interconnected links here, there's surnames and first names that repeat, and each character, there's names are in each of the sections, so they aren't the same people, they're the same names used. I don't think you'd lose too much by missing book 2. So yes, that's the final book that I read in February. Part of the reason why I read a bit less is because I was reading such a big book, but hopefully it's been interesting to watch it, and I've persevered through battery, camera, overheating, everything, and brought something. So hopefully that's welcomed, and I'll see you guys again soon in my next video. Bye!